The Darkangel by Meredith and Pierce, Chapter 10, The Witches Dogs. Ariel and the lion set off across the sand, traveling southward, away from the center of the world and toward the border of the plain. But it seemed to Ariel as she sat or lay along the Liasol's back, ate or slept or gazed at the endless dunes beneath the stars, that a subtle difference was present now. Some aspect of the lion's stride or breath or the flexing of muscles along his back betrayed tension, though the Penderlawn never said never a word. Ariel found herself now and again glancing back to scan the dunes behind, marked by the lion's trail of paw prints over the sand. They were little more than halfway to the borderland when Ariel spotted their pursuers. Solstar had declined midway toward the east horizon. What she saw were no more than white specks, far, a very long way behind them, loping eastward out of the western north. At first, Ariel thought nothing of them, guessing whatever they were, be it loping dogs or deer or long-legged running birds, would cross her and the lion's trail far back at a slant and continue on to the east. Then she saw one of the creatures, still no more than a pale dot, stop dead behind them over the lion's tracks and heard it sing out a strange, savage, sweet cry, as if calling its fellows to a trail. Even from afar the cry reached, faintly, clearly, to Ariel's ears. She felt the lion suddenly tense. He jerked his head around. "Odds," she heard him rumble. "I was afraid of that those two might be to their mistress and back before I could get you safely to the plain." "Back?" said Ariel. She could not remember having seen such a pack of creatures before, and there were more than two, at least a dozen of them, fallen in behind the leading pair and coursing down the trail. They were still too far for her to make out clearly what they were. "Penderlawn, what are they?" But the lion only said, "Hold tight, daughter, and let me save my breath for running. Happily, if we can lose them, you will need not know." His answer puzzled her, frightened her. Ariel buried her forearms in the Liasol's fiery mane, tightened her knees as the sun lion launched into a faster pace. The wind whipped at her. Ariel pressed herself against the Penderlawn, glanced back. Their pursuers had gained a little, were near enough now for Ariel to see they were 4-footed and smaller than the great cat by several times. She turned back to the lion. "But why do we flee them?" she cried in his ear. "Are you not Penderlawn, and every natural denizen of this region your ally?" She heard the Liasol laugh, a hard-edged laugh with no humor in it. "Ha! Ha! Ah, these are no natural creatures, daughter. They belong to the White Witch of the Lake." "The lake?" said Ariel slowly, more to herself than to him. Memory stirred. "A still, dead lake in the middle of a canyon, at desert's western edge." She remembered the story Derna had told her, the last tale she had told the Darkangel. "But what business has this witch with you?" "She seeks to rule my ward," replied the lion, panting, "as the Icarus now rules Alaric." Despite his shortness of breath, his tone was low and measured. "She has dwelt in that lake since before my making, and cannot be driven out, but though she herself is confined to its waters, she sends her spiles and cat's paws out over my desert, working her mischief. I kill them when I can." Ariel let out her own breath, then realized she had been holding it. She felt cold, leaned closer to the sun lion's warmth. "And now," the Penderlawn was saying, "I think I would rather outrun these than fight. I have you to look after and your prize." Ariel eased her grip on the lion, just long enough to touch the little black velvet bag that hung, still empty seeming, from the thong about her neck. Her heavy knobbed walking stick lay slung from her waist, tapping against her leg and the side as the Liasol sped. Ariel turned again to look behind her, and her heart recoiled. Gradually, steadily, the witch's creatures were lessening the space between themselves and their quarry. Solstar had traveled 3 times its own diameter, farther toward horizon's edge, when they drew close enough for Ariel to make out clearly what they were. They looked to her like long-legged dogs, with great upright ears, massy humping shoulders, and whisk-haired tails. They were pale, very pale in color, a ghostly hue that shone like dim earthshine, and they were spotted, their backs and sides covered with broken rosettes like those of pards, blots the blackness of an ermine's eye, or a starless night, or a dark angel's wings. Ariel shivered suddenly, realizing she had seen two such creatures before from a distance, as the lion had borne her to the Equistel. They ran in two long lines of a half-dozen each, these dogs flanking the Liasol's trail. The lines alternately lengthened and bunched, never stable, never steady. Their members constantly sprang sideways over each other's backs as they ran, changing places like gazelles. The luminous pallor of their coats hung like haze before Ariel's vision. The darkness of their spots seemed to shimmer and shift. She found she could watch them only in glances, or her head began to ache and her stomach stir uneasily. They were singing a song as they came, a crooning that soared and dropped suddenly down scales with never a pause for breath. It made Ariel's ears ring. It was only when they had drawn even closer that Ariel noticed their eyes, intense and angry red as carbuncles. They glowed, eyes with neither iris nor pupil nor lid. Ariel shrank away from them against the lion. Seeing her, their pursuers yipped and yapped with laughter, slavering and snapping their jaws. "Jackals!" Ariel whispered. "Jackals! Jackals!" "Aye, daughter," the lion nodded. His breath was coming shorter now. "The witches' dogs." "Can we go no faster?" Ariel cried, clutching him. "They are fairly nipping at your heels." The pale, bounding jackals gave another bark of glee, and Ariel realized their great pricked ears must be able to hear even her tight-throated whisper. The Liasol turned his head. "Not, I fear, and keep you aboard," he told her quietly. Ariel felt her desperation rising. Her limbs already ached with the strain of resisting the wind. The Penderlawn eyed the gaining dogs, then Solstar, then the stars. "Daughter, I'd hoped to get you safe across the border," he rumbled at last. "These creatures take great mastery to wield at any distance from the witch's mere, and her might is much weakened by desert's edge. But pah!" he snorted angrily. "I think we shall have to face them now." Ariel felt herself pale. The jackals hooted and scratched at the air with their teeth. The Liasol growled. "But hold fast to me first," he bade her. "If face them we must, let us at least choose our own ground." With that, he sprang away suddenly in such an unaccustomed burst of speed that Ariel was dizzied. She locked her arms, her legs about him. Behind them, the jackals sent up a wild yell, not of dismay, but as of triumph. Their hunting song grew suddenly bolder, fiercer. Turning, Ariel saw the double line of red-eyed dogs dashing in pursuit. The wind buffeting her was so intense, Ariel could scarcely breathe. She felt her hands slipping on the lion's hot silk mane, her knees dragging along his side as the rush of air shoved her back from his shoulders. Gritting her teeth and clenching her eyes, she clasped him as hard as she could. Even that was not enough. She felt herself beginning to slip. The lion stopped, smoothly, without jolt, but instantly. Ariel clung to him, dazed. Her body felt numb. In the sudden cessation of wind, she gasped for breath. "Quick, daughter!" the great cat was crying, shrugging his shoulders to help her off. "To the ground! We must stand ready!" Ariel tumbled to the sand, knelt a moment on hands and knees, winded. The Liasol had brought them part way up the steep lee side of a dune. The lee slope slanted sharply away in front of them, toward the oncoming jackals. Behind her, Ariel saw the top of the same slope, recurving to hang above her and the Penderlawn like the crest of a frozen wave, preventing attack from the rear. Ariel scrambled to her feet and pulled her walking stick from her wrist. The lion had already faced about toward the double line of jackals, coursing up the slope. "Remember, daughter," the lion said as she took her place beside him. Stand flank to flank with me, and do not let them pass us. Odds, he growled in undertone, seemingly more to himself than to her. A pair, or even four of them, would be no hard task to dispatch, but so many, I have never seen the like. Ariel stood breathing fast and deeply to steady herself. Gripping her staff, she gazed at the swiftly approaching pack. Beside her, the Penderlawn snorted, shook his head. Faith, he murmured, their mistress must be growing vast. The witches' dogs loped to within 10 paces of the Liasol and halted. The two leaders came a few paces farther, then sat, regarding their quarry with hot, deep red eyes, while the rest of the pack milled and trotted behind them, leaping over one another in disturbing confusion.